So, what about warlock? Is it a real term? Uh, I was brought up as a witch, of course, and we were taught that a warlock was an oath breaker, and that they had broken their oath to the coven, and as such, the coven was persecuted during the burning times. This was somebody that betrayed the coven. Um, Oxford retranslated it one time into a bender of words, which we all kind of do that. Um, but then the question come up, it's like, what oath was being broken, considering Christians came up with the word warlock during the burning times, and it's what they called a male witch. But they came up with the term. So what was the oath being broken? Was it the oath to the Christian church? Well, if you think you have the answer, Christian Days had a $10,000 reward to anybody that can prove that it meant betraying the covenant. And that 10 grand's been sitting there for 2 decades. Nobody seems to be able to collect. Now, there are a lot of gay male witches that in recent years have been reclaiming the word warlock for their own purposes. The hetero-ness of a lot of crafts seems to turn them off. And, so they have their own reasons. But I am pretty much the only heterosexual male witch that I know that has reclaimed the word warlock, and I have different reasons than my brothers. And I'm going to tell you those reasons now. For most of my life in the craft, Wicca was the dominant force, and Wicca grew side by side with the goddess, the goddess movement. And some of the biggest feminist goddess movements came out of my hometown, Santa Cruz. That's where Z Budapest came from. That's where Sage Woman was published. And I grew up, I was taught, hey, look, we're breaking away from the patriarchy here. And women have suffered greatly under that patriarchy. And as such, they got some issues that they're going to have to work out. They're going to work out some of those issues on you. Women, our sisters, will say terrible things about your entire gender. And we had a gentleman's agreement between us. Like, we're going to let that slide. They've been through a lot. They need to reclaim a lot. We're just going to let that go. Well, that's 45 years now. I'm not letting it go anymore. I love my sisters. That's why I supported them. That's why I made the gentleman's agreement back then. But like I said, people like Z Budapest rose up in the ranks, and they were allowed to declare us a lower species of life that should be eradicated from the planet. Even down to this day, the joke about the bear, that's rather offensive to those of us that have not harmed you, those of us that have supported you, those of us that have lifted you up to become the goddess that you should have always been. In my lifetime in the craft, I can count on one hand the number of my sisters that rose up against people like Z Budapest calling us a lower species of life to be eradicated from the planet, to defend us. And I say I can count it on one hand, but it's two. It's two. Okay? It may seem kind of funny, you may feel good about that, but we're over here being your brothers, trying to be in a religion or a spirituality where we are actually equal, where we have equal footing, and doing everything we could to give you an upper footing, to lift you up from the oppression of the patriarchy, which we were not the patriarchy, just because we had a penis. We were clearly separated from the patriarchy based on the beliefs that we were all mutually holding. But where were my sisters? Where were they? They took a blind eye and a blind ear and they let that shit go. I let that shit go for a long time, but at a certain point, enough is enough. So I love y'all. And I definitely love me some women. All my friends are, well, I mean, now I guess all my friends are women and gay guys because there's not many heterosexual males in the craft. But I have gone out of my way to support my sisters. So I reclaim the word warlock to separate my masculinity from the rest of the bullshit and from the rest of y'all, to make a glaring statement. Um, I still call myself a witch, but I also reclaim the word warlock, and those are my reasons for reclaiming warlock. And they're very different than a lot of my warlock brethren. But those of you that are older, been around the craft for a long time, um, didn't speak up when that shit was said, shame on you. Shame on you. This on a broader scale is why we've got some of these fucking movements, like Nick Fuentes and shit, being able to radicalize all these men, because it's totally okay to call a man a lower species of life responsible for all the wars and violence on the planet, when history has plenty of female warriors and plenty of female warmongers, murderers, you name it. Nobody should be elevated above another, and I elevated women above for most of my life and did not receive the same treatment, and as such, I reclaim the word warlock. Because fuck you. If that applies to you, fuck you. That was bullshit. I personally took a lot of shit for your equality. And if you couldn't do the same, well, fuck you. I'm Uncle Birch, and fuck you.